There's something that God has kind of brought to my attention in the news recently. And it's something I kind of wondered about previously because, like in 2019, there was this major lightning strike at the U.S. Women's Open. And when God starts striking with lightning, like it's kind of like a joke, right? Like God's going to strike me with lightning. People say that as a joke. But it's real. When God starts striking with lightning, like that's a real thing. We should be paying attention to what he's striking with lightning. Like, why is he upset about this thing? And then recently in the news, I've been seeing that France is having this terrible outbreak of bed bugs, and they're trying to eradicate this plague before the Olympics. And so he started to make me wonder about this. Is God somehow upset with professional sports? Is there something that he holds against professional sports? Now, in my life, I was a gymnast as a child. I was a dancer later on in life, doing ballroom dance. I did kickboxing for a short time. I did body sculpting as a young adult. And so I have a little bit of experience with the maybe sports culture and the dance culture. Dance culture is a little bit different, but still associated. And so I'm thinking about this from my own experience and also from what I've seen in the world. And what I can tell you that I've seen is a lot of sexual immorality, a lot of over-sexualization, a lot of idolatry and hero making. Even, from a young age, children are being asked, well, who's your hero? Who's your idol? Who's your idol? What a thing to ask children, huh? And what do they usually say? And what culture do you see on TV? What culture are you seeing when you, for example, are watching the Super Bowl? What associations are made with sports? Victoria's Secret show? The last boxing fight that I watched was sponsored by cannabis companies. A lot of glorification of darkness and drug use, sexual immorality again, idolatrous music culture. And I even remember that when I was going to counterfeit church, that it was sort of like, no one talked about football season and people missing church to go watch the game, to watch the Super Bowl. Why is that excusable? Why is that hush-hush? If in fact they believe that to be Christianity, essentially what they're doing is choosing that over Christ. That's a clear message, isn't it? Professional sports become a religion. They become a religion. They become an identity. And I think a lot of us, a lot of parents are happy for that to happen, for sports to become the identity of their child, to keep them out of trouble, right? Keep them out of all of the teenage trouble. You know how you do that? Raise your kids at home. Give them an identity in Christ. But because parents are too busy having it all in the world to raise the children that God gave them, they outsource their responsibilities to idolatrous things like an identity in some sort of activity rather than an identity in Christ. So we have issues of idolatry, issues of identity, consuming time that's supposed to be spent with the Lord. And I'm not saying don't exercise, don't have hobbies, don't have activities, but we're talking about something else. We need to be honest about this. This becomes an identity. This becomes something that consumes time that is meant for God, that labels us when we're supposed to be sealed by God as his. And people who are really involved in sport culture, like they follow a team or maybe they're, involved in it because they play sports, they talk about it all the time. I want to mention to you some things that people have said regarding sports. Psychologist Alan Goldberg of the University of Connecticut said, sports is like a religion, and the God of that religion that we all worship is the God of winning. That's pretty telling, isn't it? That came from cnsnews.com. And actually, I'm taking these quotes from an article that, because as I was curious about this, I went to go see, has anyone else talked about sports being ungodly, sports being problematic to the Christian life? So I actually took it from an article on www.wayoflife.org. I didn't agree with everything in the article, but I did find these quotes to be very interesting. So I'm going to list off the citations that this person mentioned. In a report on the drought in West Texas that is killing the grass on the football fields, the Los Angeles Times observed that this is serious because football is God and the field is church. Oh, in West Texas, Los Angeles Times, October 3rd, 2011. It was also in 1983, the World Almanac and Book of Facts polled 2,000 eighth grade students to see which persons they most admired. There was not a single name on the list that was not an entertainer or a sports figure. That is just sad, you guys. 1982, the famous sports announcer Howard Cosell, while viewing the largest Sunday football game attendance in Texas history, said the Cowboys are more than a football team in Dallas, they are a religion. He exclaimed, "Look at the loyalty of those people. Look at the signs that they have made. Truly, the Cowboys are a religion in Dallas." He was right. Professional football has become a religion all across America. On Sunday, December 27th, 1987, 75,000 Denver Broncos football fans battled blizzard conditions to reach Mile High Stadium by the 2 p.m. kickoff. Oh, if they would only do that for God. Good grief. The airport was closed at 12:30 p.m. that Sunday and remained closed until 6 a.m. on Monday. Thousands of people were stranded at the airport, but those extreme conditions did not stop the football-mad crowd. In other countries, the religion is called soccer. And then he goes on to talk about that. And he said a funeral service in the United States is marketing alma mater caskets, which feature the logos of more than 50 universities. That's disgusting. Why would someone want to take a college or university with him to the grave? No doubt this new marketing scheme has a lot to do with the sports craze. The love for college football is at near insane levels, and now someone is cashing in on the fervor by offering to allow the sports fan to take his favorite college with him to the grave. Morality and sports are almost completely separated in the minds of large numbers of people. A survey of 1,240 adults completed in 1995 and published in Sports Marketing Newsletter asked people to name the athletes they most admired. The first four were Magic Johnson, HIV positive and an admitted adulterer; Tonya Harding, convicted conspirator for the violent attack upon a fellow skater, Nancy Kerrigan; O.J. Simpson, held financially liable by a jury for murdering his wife; and Mike Tyson, convicted rapist. Other Major League sports stars who have served time in prison include, he goes on to a very long list. I'll read some of them. Dave Maggette, Lawrence Phillips. Okay, Dave Maggette, football, criminal sex conduct, and burglary. Lawrence Phillips, football, assault with a deadly weapon. Ray Caruth, I'm guessing. Sorry if I'm surely saying these names wrong because I am not a football fan. Conspiracy to commit murder. Robert Rozier, football, murder. Daryl Henley, drug trafficking, attempted murder. Aaron Hernandez, football, murder. Sam Hurd, drug trafficking. Darren Sharper, sex assault and rape. Keith Wright, armed robbery. Eric Naposki, murder. Plaxico Burress, criminal possession of a weapon. Cecil Collins, burglary. Josh Brent, manslaughter. Kevin Allen, sexual assault. Dwayne Goodrich, homicide. Johnny Jolly, drug possession. Tommy Kane, manslaughter. Leonard Little, involuntary manslaughter. Dexter Manley, drug possession. C.J. Spillman, sexual assault. Okay, so we get the picture, right? It's actually a very, very, very long list. And actually, I dated someone prior to him becoming a Dallas Cowboy, and he was later convicted of some pretty serious drug trafficking charges. And I asked him later how he was doing, and he said, well, because of his sort of notoriety, it wasn't difficult for him to get another job. I mean, there's really like no consequences. And there was a lot of violence among these groups. It's no different from the idolatry that goes on in Hollywood, in the music industry, et cetera, et cetera. These are heroes and idols, and the culture is very self-involved, just like these other industries. And again, I want to emphasize that whatever you are associating with, so, for example, the field of science, you already know my grievance. They outright reject the existence of a creator in place of evolution. Who do they associate with? The wise of the world, the philosophers in psychology, can't get their own lives together, but they tell everybody else what to do with their lives. It's ridiculous. Big pharma, plastic surgery, really? Degrading the temple of God. And now we do that with our children, right? Bring our children in because, God messed up on their gender, if we even acknowledge that God made them. You see the associations. Like, you can't not see that. That insurance companies and big pharma and research and All of this is wrong. It's wrong. And people will admit out of one side of their mouth that there are deeply satanic agendas, but then out of the other side of their mouth, they'll say that God gave this to us. God gave us science, really? The very field that rejects him, that denies that he even exists. And it's the same thing with every other industry. When you're watching the Super Bowl and you're seeing all of these things being associated with it, that Victoria's Secret show, the commercials, the sponsors, that should raise a red flag for you. That is not something that we should be teaching our children is family time to gather around. And if we can't be doing that with our children, we shouldn't be doing it at all. Because don't you know that we're children? We're children of the Most High. It's something to think about. I know that people are not going to be happy about it. But again, you got to check why it is that you're not happy about it. Is it because you're more connected to that than you are to God? This is the thing I'm not willing to give up. Nope, not willing to give up my Christmas, not willing to give up my Super Bowl. Let me tell you something. God doesn't crash his own party. So if he's bringing plagues or he's striking something with lightning, we need to look alive. We need to pay attention to what he's saying. And that's ultimately what brought me there. How he brought me to this question. And as I began to think about it, I began to think about the vanity that I was involved in, the idolatry, the self-centeredness, the identity, the compulsion even. I was compelled to do some of these things. That's not an indication of God. I want to remind you what Paul said in the Word. He said, for physical training is of some value. So exercise is of value. Having a hobby is okay. Having an identity outside of God, that's not okay. Paul says, for physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. I do not believe that professional sport culture is godly whatsoever. I do believe that you can play a sport, you can be physically active, but when it starts to replace your identity, your thinking, your life in Christ, it's become an idol. And that is far too accepted in our culture. It is far too accepted in counterfeit Christian culture. And I hope that you will bring these things to God. Discern with him. Don't be too quick to dismiss what I have to say. Bring it to him and ask him.